So how does it perform? I've got my new 9-channel radio unit here, and now we're just using the first channel here to test the power. That's all good. This channel here is the rudder. Standard process, so I don't get mixed up. That's what most boats use. Hydroplane up and down, you can see the bow and the stern planes working. And now you can see the self-leveling override also working. Now we move the stick to the left, and the piston is moving to the left and to the right, and the piston's moving to the right. You can't see that very well, but that's all pretty good. Now this little button in the middle has a second delay and the main pump goes on, and a second delay and the main pump goes on to pump out. All the way around, and it resets the Arduino, which is the reason I have the 1 second delay. Now there's no delay on this. This is the pump to the bow, pump to the stern. Okay, that's all the manual controls. Now if I put this on auto, you see that the boat is immediately seeking to get to the surface. So if I click snapshot and then auto, it's happily maintaining depth on top of the desk. That's very nice. So now I'm going to click the surface mode. And what's happening is that the piston is pushing out, the trim tanks are pumping toward the stern, and the main pump also then comes on after a 2 second delay, and I'm now just going to reset the Arduino to stop it. So that's how it all works. So you just heard the double click on the transmitter, and the fact that the piston withdrew for 5 seconds, the trim tanks pumped toward the bow for 5 seconds, and then the main pump took over. Now this is useful actually, because the pump that's running at the moment to fill the main tank is a gear pump, which is unbearably slow, but it enables me to chat while we're doing this. Of course, what I've done now is replaced it with one that is very, very fast. So, when the boat is first put in the water, the first thing to do is to go through the dive routine. Although in practice, I tend to just fill the ballast tank and then adjust the piston and the trim tanks manually at first to get it right. Not always that easy to do, but once you've got it right, the boat then holds very nicely in whatever water conditions that you've got. So at this point, as you can see, I'm the tank is basically full, and I'm pulling back on the piston, and it now needs, I think, probably a bit of trim to the stern. But what happens with these U-boats a little bit is that bubbles get locked into the hull, so she's bow up, and I'm just manually pumping water toward the bow to get that right. And what then happens, I've taken a snapshot of the pressure at this point just to get it right, because that's now going to be presumably the cruising depth. And the boat's sinking fairly quickly to the bottom, and I would normally have to reverse that. What you can hear in the background is the piston adjusting for 1 second every 8 seconds, because it can sense that the boat's deeper than the cruising depth. The trouble with that system is it tends to overcompensate. So if the boat is, as it is now, sitting on the bottom, it's going to start coming up, and it's not really going to hold the boat at the right level. It's just going to bring it up, and sure enough, it's going to bounce off the surface. There we go. So I'm now just going to adjust the trim manually. You can see the little Arduino lights flickering under the deck. But now what I've decided to do is just push it down, piston and pump down, and demonstrate the surfacing mechanism. So I've double clicked it, water's being pumped to the stern, the piston's pushing water out, and the boat nicely surfaces, and when it reaches the surface, the main pump comes on. Perfect. But in this case, it's going to take 60 seconds to empty the tank. That's slower than a U-boat in real time, so very quickly tiring of this process. We're going to need a much better pump. For some reason, and I'm not exactly sure how this works, I think it's because the ballast tank as the boat is emptying, tends to probably have water in the end of it. And there comes a point where suddenly it just lifts out of the water when the pump gets that last bit of water, and it rushes back and it gets sucked out. I think that's what the process is, but it just seems to suddenly come up at the last minute. Can't see in there, can't work out exactly what it is. But that's pretty good. That basically is how the boat works. Now you can see it diving in the pool. Always good to do this. Hydroplane's down and she goes down. Now I'm using the depth keeping device. There's a big crack between the top and the bottom of the hull, and I'm got to make that better. But she's cruising at depth now. I'm so excited about it, I've lost control of the boat and it's going towards, yes, shocking navigation issues. You can see swimmers over there. She's coming around, holding. It's doing a little bit of dolphin movement. It's just going up and down a little bit with the bow. I think that could be that the self-leveling device is a little bit too critical. But it's holding its depth very nicely, and it's running now up the pool. 50-metre pool is very small, very quickly. And I'm about to set in motion the surfacing routine. And that's it. And when the motors are on, it pushes it toward the surface too when the bow goes up. So that's all pretty easy. And now in real time, this is me in the murky lake that's near us, and I use this mast because it really helps me get the boat level. As you can see, it's a matter, now you've got bubbles coming out and all the rest of it. This is now in the big lake where I took the movie, and when I first started the process of trimming it, some bubbles came out and it went straight down very, very quickly. And this is the picture using the underwater camera of the boat coming up again. It went down to about 1.5 meters, I guess. Rested on the bottom, and then I had to bring it back. The trick is to push the piston out before it gets to the surface, so that in fact you don't break the surface like I just did there. So it's a little bit of a process. You have to, there's no way around this. We're bow light. So what I'm doing now is just getting it just right. I've got the snapshot depth organized, and now we just take off and cruise, and it works really very well. The process of getting that right, though, is going to take practice. This is the surfacing routine in real time, in a real lake, and I find that very satisfying to watch because it's very realistic. Here's a real pump working. She's up and ready to go in no time. And now we have the classic view. I've clicked surface routine, and you can see the bow now heading toward the surface. This is, love this shot. Dust boot.